Amina stands beneath the yellow glare of a Lagos street lamp, her hands trembling as she watches Connor's tail lights disappear into the humid night. The suitcase at her feet, the one he said contained her work documents, is impossibly light. When she forces the lock open with shaking fingers, stones spill onto the cracked pavement. She reaches for the silver locket her mother pressed into her palm at the village gate, but before her fingers can close around it, a cold hand wraps around her wrist. In this city, a voice whispers from the darkness behind her, the only thing free is the air, and even that will cost you your soul. Amina is the heartbeat of her village, the girl who sings at every wedding, who carries water for the elderly without being asked, who makes her parents, Musa and Zora, glow with pride. She wants to build them a house with a zinc roof so the rain will stop dripping through the thatch during the wet season. Her flaw is the dangerous belief that everyone who returns from Lagos with new clothes and big stories is telling the whole truth. She thinks hard work and good intentions are armor enough against the world's cruelty. We see her boarding the night bus with a bag of dried hibiscus her mother packed, waving goodbye to a father whose worried eyes she mistakes for tears of joy, stepping into a journey she believes will end in triumph but is actually designed to swallow her whole. The hand belongs to a woman with eyes like shattered glass. She pulls Amina into the shadow of a rusted gate, whispering urgently about police sweeps and girls who disappear. But Amina barely hears her. She's remembering 3 weeks ago, when Connor first arrived in her village. He'd worn a white agbada that caught the sunlight like money itself. Her father Musa had watched from the doorway as Connor spoke of Lagos opportunities, his jaw tight with something Amina couldn't read. These city people, Musa had said later, his voice low. They smile with too many teeth. But Amina had already seen herself in that future, imagined her mother's face when the zinc roof went up, pictured her father finally resting his worn hands. Connor had promised 20,000 naira a month, just for organizing fires and answering phones. Simple work. Honest work. Your daughter is special, Connor had told them, and Amina's heart had swelled like wet grain. I can see it. Lagos needs girls like her. Musa had hesitated, his fingers drumming against the wooden table. But Zara had touched his arm, her eyes bright with desperate hope, and Amina had known the decision was already made. The roof leaked worse every rainy season. Her younger brother needed school fees. The village well was running dry. I send money home every month, Amina had promised, taking her father's calloused hands. You'll see. Everything will change. Now, standing in the Lagos darkness with stones scattered at her feet, Amina understands what her father's tight jaw had meant. He hadn't been skeptical. He'd been afraid. The bus had smelled of diesel and overripe plantains. Amina had claimed the window seat, pressing her forehead against the glass as the village shrank behind her. Other passengers slept or argued over football matches, but Amina stayed awake through the entire 12-hour journey, watching her old life dissolve into darkness. She'd called her mother when they stopped in Kaduna. Zora's voice had crackled through the phone, thick with emotion. Have you eaten? Are you safe? I'm fine, Mama. I'll call you when I reach Lagos. Your father wanted to say goodbye properly this morning, Zora said. But you know how he is with words. Amina had smiled, imagining Musa's stoic face. Tell him I'll make him proud. Between calls, she'd let her mind wander, pictured herself in a clean office with air conditioning, learning to use a computer, maybe even earning enough to take classes at night. She'd heard stories of village girls who became secretaries, then managers, then something more. Why not her? The dried hibiscus flowers her mother packed released their tart scent every time she opened her bag. She'd saved 3 for her first day of work, to make tea that would remind her of home when the city felt too big. As dawn broke over Lagos, Amina had stared at the skyline rising through the smog like a promise written in concrete and glass. The city looked nothing like the village, and that had felt like hope. She'd rehearsed her greeting for Connor's boss, straightened her best blouse, whispered a prayer her grandmother taught her. The bus had finally whizzed to a stop at Ojota. Connor was waiting, his smile bright as a blade. Connor's office is a 3-story building in Ikeja with peeling yellow paint and windows covered in brown paper. Amina follows him up narrow stairs that smell of mildew and something sour she can't identify. Her suitcase bumps against each step, the sound echoing in the empty stairwell. The boss likes to meet new employees personally, Connor says without turning around. But first, we handle the paperwork. Government regulations, you understand. He leads her into a room with a single desk and 2 plastic chairs. A ceiling fan spins lazily overhead, pushing hot air in circles. Amina sits, her hands folded in her lap, trying to look professional despite the sweat dampening her collar. Your phone and identification, Connor says, extending his palm. For processing. Security protocols. Something in Amina's chest tightens. I can hold on to them. Connor's smile doesn't waver, but his eyes go flat. This is Lagos, not your village. Every company does this. Or would you prefer I call your parents and tell them you're not serious about the position? The threat hangs in the air between them. Amina thinks of her father's worried face, her mother's hopeful voice on the phone. She reaches into her bag, her fingers trembling slightly as she hands over her phone and the small plastic folder containing her identification card, birth certificate, and secondary school certificate. Connor takes them without ceremony and stands. Wait here. The boss will be with you shortly. The door closes behind him. Amina hears a key turn in the lock. She sits in the plastic chair for 3 hours. The room grows hotter. The fan stops spinning. She knocks on the door twice, then presses her ear against the wood and hears nothing, no footsteps, no voices, only the distant sound of Lagos traffic. When the door finally opens, it isn't Connor standing there. It's a woman with tired eyes and a blue headscarf who says just 4 words that collapse Amina's world. Come with me, sister. The warehouse in Opopo smells of rust and fear. Amina is led through a maze of shipping containers stacked 3 high, their metal sides whipping condensation in the humid air. The woman, who never gives her name, stops at a container with a reinforced door and gestures for Amina to enter. Inside, 7 other girls sit on thin foam mattresses spread across the floor. They look up when Amina enters, their eyes reflecting the same hollow understanding. No one speaks. The woman locks the door from outside, and the sound echoes like a coffin closing. A girl with cornrows and a faded Ankara dress finally breaks the silence. What did they promise you? Personal assistant, Amina whispers. 20,000 a month. Several girls laugh, but there's no humor in it. They told me I'd be a nanny, another says. 3 meals a day and my own room. Housemaid for a rich family in Lekki, adds a girl who can't be older than 16. The girl with cornrows stands and extends her hand. I'm Blessing. From Benin. Welcome to the house where dreams go to die. Amina takes her hand, feeling the calluses that match her own. How long have you been here? 4 months. Some girls have been here longer. Some. Blessing's voice trails off. Some don't last. Through the ventilation slats high in the container wall, Amina can see a slice of sky turning purple with dusk. She thinks of her mother preparing the evening meal, her father sitting outside their house listening to the radio. They are probably wondering why she hasn't called. Her phone is in Connor's pocket. Her identification is wherever men like him keep the documents of girls they've erased. What do they want with us? Amina asks, though part of her already knows. Blessing sits back down, her shoulders sagging. Everything. They want everything we have, everything we are, everything we might have been. And when there's nothing left to take, they ship us somewhere else and start over with new girls. That night, Amina doesn't sleep. She lies on the foam mattress staring at the corrugated metal ceiling, her hand wrapped around her mother's locket, the only thing Connor didn't take because he didn't know she had it hidden beneath her blouse. She promised her father she'd make him proud. Instead, she's become another disappeared girl in a city that swallows people whole. Morning arrives with the scrape of metal on metal as the container door opens. The woman with the blue headscarf hands out bottles of water and stale bread, counting heads like livestock. 2 of you will go with the driver today, she announces. Blessing. And you, new girl. Amina's stomach twists as she's led outside into the blinding sunlight. A delivery truck idles near the warehouse entrance, its engine coughing diesel smoke. The driver leans against the hood, a young man with tired eyes and a scar cutting through his left eyebrow. He watches as Blessing and Amina are loaded into the back of the truck along with boxes marked textiles. The woman locks them in, and the darkness is absolute until Amina's eyes adjust to the thin strips of light coming through the slats. The truck lurches forward. Blessing immediately curls up against the boxes, her face turned away. But Amina moves to the slats, pressing her against the gap to watch Lagos flow past, markets bleeding with color, Okada drivers weaving through traffic, women carrying impossible loads on their heads. Life continuing as if girls like her don't exist. When the truck stops at a checkpoint, Amina hears voices outside. The driver's voice is calm, almost bored, as he exchanges words with a policeman. Money changes hands, she hears the crisp snap of naira notes. The policeman laughs at something and waves them through. At the next stop, when the driver opens the bag to retrieve a box, his eyes meet Amina's through the gap. For just a moment, something passes between them, recognition, maybe, or the shadow of shame. He doesn't look away like the others do. He holds her gaze for 3-4 seconds, and in those seconds, Amina sees something she hasn't seen since arriving in Lagos. Humanity. The driver, his name tag says Bode, closes the door without a word. But as the truck pulls away, Amina touches the locket at her throat and allows herself the smallest, most dangerous thing in a place like this, hope. Maybe there are still people in this city who remember what it means to see another person suffering and actually see it, not just look past it. Stories like this one, stories that start in darkness but search for light, they exist because we refuse to look away. If Amina's fight means something to you, if her voice matters, then maybe stay with this story. Maybe share what it makes you feel. Because the only thing crueler than cruelty itself is silence in the face of it. Bode's hands shake as he drives away from the last delivery point. He's been working for the syndicate for 2 years, long enough to learn how to keep his head down, how to see without seeing, how to survive in a city that forgives nothing and forgets no one. But the girl in the back of the truck today, the new one with defiant eyes, something about her face tugs at a memory he spent years trying to bury. That night, in the single room he rents in Suralea, Bode pulls out the old photo album his mother gave him before she died. He flips past images of birthday parties and Christmas celebrations until he finds the picture he's looking for, a faded photograph from 20 years ago, 2 families standing together at a village celebration. His father, Adeyemi, stands on the left with his arm around a man Bode barely remembers, Musa. They are smiling, but even in the photograph, there's tension in their shoulders, distance in their eyes. Between them, like a chasm neither could cross, was a strip of land both men claimed as their inheritance. Bode's mother had told him the story many times. How Musa had cheated his father in a land dispute, how the courts had favored Musa because he had connections, how Adeyemi had lost not just the land but his dignity. The story shaped Bode's childhood like a wound that never healed. When Adeyemi died 3 years ago, his last words to Bode were bitter, that man Musa stole our future. He deserves to know what loss feels like. Bode touches the face of the young girl standing beside Musa in the photograph, maybe 8 years old, gap-toothed and grinning. Even across 2 decades, he recognizes those eyes. The same eyes that looked at him today from the back of his truck. Amina. Musa's daughter. The realization hits him like a fist to the chest. Connor hadn't just recruited any girl from some random village. He'd specifically targeted Musa's daughter. And Bode, without knowing, had been delivering Musa's child to her doom, carrying out the revenge his father had demanded. He sits in the darkness of his room, the photograph trembling in his hands, and for the first time in 2 years, Bode allows himself to feel the full weight of what he's become. His phone buzzes. A text from Connor, new shipment schedule moved up. 3 days. Be ready. Bode stares at the message for a long time. Then he makes a decision that will either save him or destroy him. Maybe both. Amina begins singing on the 3rd night in the container. It's an old Hausa lullaby her grandmother taught her, about a bird that flies home no matter how far the wind carries it. Her voice is soft at first, barely more than a whisper, but it fills the metal box like light filtering through cracks. One by one, the other girls stop their quiet crying and listen. Blessing sits up, her eyes glistening in the darkness. The youngest girl, Chinoza, who hasn't spoken since Amina arrived, moves closer. My grandmother sang that, Blessing says. In Benin, before everything. Then you know the second verse, Amina says. Blessing's voice joins hers, rusty at first, then growing stronger. Soon all the girls are humming, even those who don't know the words. The song becomes a net that holds them together, reminds them they are still human, still whole, still capable of creating something beautiful in this place designed to break them. Over the following days, Amina teaches them more songs. Work songs her village women sang while planting yam. Celebration songs for weddings and naming ceremonies. Mourning songs that honor grief without surrendering to it. The container becomes something unexpected, not a prison, but a sanctuary where their voices are their own, where no man can take what they create together. The woman with the blue headscarf notices the change. The girls stand straighter now. They look each other in the eyes. They've stopped asking when they can go home and started asking different questions. How many guards? When do they change shifts? Where are the exits? Stop the singing, the woman tells Amina one morning. You're making trouble. We're just remembering who we are, Amina replies. You can take our documents, our phones, our freedom. But you can't take our voices. Not unless you cut out our tongues. The woman's hand moves toward her pocket, where Amina knows she keeps a knife. But something stops her, maybe the way all 7 girls have stood up behind Amina, their shoulders touching, forming an unbreakable line. Maybe it's the memory of when she was the one locked in the container, before she made the choice to become what she is now. The woman's hand falls to her side. She leaves without another word. That night, Amina teaches them the most important song of all, not a lullaby or a celebration, but the song her people sing when preparing for battle. A song about women who refused to be conquered, about villages that survived when everyone said they would fall, about the stubborn resilience of those who have nothing left to lose. They are still singing when Bod arrives the next morning for the scheduled delivery. He stands outside the container, listening, and something inside him that he thought was dead begins to stir. Connor arrives at the warehouse with 3 other men Amina has never seen. They move like professionals, checking clipboards, inspecting the containers, speaking in low voices about manifest and crossing schedules. The woman with the blue headscarf becomes suddenly civil in their presence, nodding and gesturing toward the container where Amina and the girls wait. The ship leaves in 48 hours, Connor says loud enough for his voice to carry inside. These ones go to Libya first. After that, whoever buys them. Libya. The word detonates in the small space like a grenade. Chinoza starts crying silently, tears streaming down her face. Another girl rocks back and forth, her hands pressed against her mouth. Even Blessing's carefully maintained composure cracks. But Amina feels something unexpected rising in her chest, not fear, but fury. Pure, clarifying rage. She's watched her father work himself to the bone for land that wouldn't yield. She's seen her mother stretch one chicken across 3 meals. She's known hunger, exhaustion, disappointment. But she's never known this, the sensation of being treated as cargo, as a thing to be loaded and shipped and sold to the highest bidder. Listen to me, Amina whispers to the girls. We don't have much time. She organizes them like her grandmother organized village women during harvest. Everyone has a role, everyone matters, everyone fights. They pull their resources, a broken piece of metal from the container floor, shoelaces that can be woven into rope, the sharp edge of a belt buckle. Not weapons exactly, but possibilities. Outside, Bod loads boxes onto his truck with mechanical precision. But his mind is racing. He spent the last 2 days wrestling with the impossible choice before him, let Amina and the others be shipped away, or risk everything to stop it. He thinks of his father's bitter face, the weight of intergenerational hatred. Then he thinks of the photograph, of 2 families who once stood together before greed and lies poisoned everything. He thinks of the lullaby he heard through the container walls, the same song his mother sang to him when he was small. Some debts, he realizes, can only be paid with courage. Some cycles can only be broken by someone brave enough to step outside them. Bod pulls out his phone and dials a number he swore he'd never call, a tactical police unit commander whose brother he once saved from a mugging. The debt is small, but right now, it's all he has. I have information, Bod says quietly, turning away from the warehouse. about a trafficking operation in Apapa. But you have to move fast. They are shipping the girls out tomorrow night. The commander's voice is sharp with interest. How reliable is this information? Bode watches Connor through the warehouse window, laughing with his associates, counting money like it's the only thing that matters in the world. I'm inside, Bode says. I'm the driver. There's a long pause. Then, if you're lying, you go down with them. I know, Bode says. I'm counting on it. The sirens start at 2 a.m., cutting through the Lagos night like a knife through cloth. Amina is awake, she hasn't slept in days. Through the slats in the container, she sees flashlight beams slicing through darkness, hears shouting, the thunder of boots on metal. The warehouse erupts into chaos. Men scatter like roaches when the lights come on. Connor's voice rises above the confusion, backing orders, trying to organize a defense that's already crumbling. The container door flies open. But it's not the woman with the blue headscarf, it's Bode, his face sheen with sweat, his hands shaking. Get out. Now. Police are coming. The girls hesitate for a crucial second. Is this another trap? Another layer of the nightmare? But Amina sees the truth in his eyes, the same truth she glimpsed days ago. She grabs Blessing's hand and runs. Outside, tactical police are breaching the warehouse perimeter. Connor sees the girls escaping and sprints toward them, desperation transforming his smooth face into something feral. He grabs Amina by the hair, jerking her backward, wrapping his arm around her throat. Everyone stops or she dies. Connor screams, using Amina as a shield. The police freeze. Bode freezes. Time itself seems to stop. But Amina is done being a victim. She remembers her father's calloused hands, her mother's quiet strength, every woman in her village who survived by being tougher than the world expected. She drops her weight suddenly, throwing Connor off balance, and brings her elbow back hard into his ribs. It's not much, she's half his size. But it's enough to loosen his grip for one crucial second. Amina twists free and swings the chain they used to lock the container, the chain she'd grabbed without thinking. The metal catches Connor across the face, and he staggers backward. The police surge forward. Bode lunges to pull Amina away from the violence, but Connor, bleeding, enraged, pulls a gun. Everything slows. Amina sees the barrel swinging toward Bode, sees his eyes widen, sees the moment of understanding that this is how he dies. She doesn't think. She throws herself sideways, her body colliding with Bode's, knocking them both to the ground as the gunshot cracks through the air. The bullet passes through the space where Bode's chest had been a heartbeat before. Then the police are on Connor, and it's over. The violence that promised to consume them all collapses in on itself, leaving only the aftermath, Connor in handcuffs, the other girls crying and holding each other, Bode staring at Amina with an expression that holds wonder and grief and something too complex to name. You saved me, he whispers. Why? Amina touches the locket at her throat, her mother's locket, the only thing that survived intact. Because someone had to break the cycle, she says simply. Might as well be us. When this darkness broke open and light came through, what emerged wasn't just survival, it was choice, courage, the decision to save someone even when the world has given you every reason not to. If this moment resonates with you, if you believe in stories that refuse to let cruelty have the last word, then maybe this story deserves to be heard beyond this moment. Sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply refusing to look away. The village looks smaller than Amina remembers, but more precious. 3 weeks after the warehouse breach, after the police statement and the legal proceedings and the shelter that helped her begin healing, she steps off the bus into the red dust of home. Her father is waiting at the gate. Musa has aged a decade in the months she's been gone, his face is drawn, his shoulders bent. But when he sees her, something in him uncalls. Amina, he says, and his voice breaks on her name. She walks into his arms and lets him hold her the way he hasn't since she was small. I'm sorry, Baba. I didn't bring money for the roof. We'll manage the roof, he says into her hair. I just want you here. Alive. Ho. Her mother Zora runs from the house, her headscarf flying, and then all three of them are crying and holding each other while the village watches and whispers. Amina knows the whispers will follow her. In a place this small, everything is known. But she also knows she survived worse than gossip. That evening, as the sun sets and turns the sky to gold, there's a knock at their gate. Amina opens it to find a man she doesn't recognize at first, older, one by the same city that tried to destroy her. Bode, she says, and her father appears behind her, his body suddenly tense. Bode sees Musa and something complex moves across his face. He reaches into his bag and pulls out a folder, old, cracked with age. My father kept this. Documents about the land dispute. I found them after. He pauses. After everything. The truth was different than what he told me. Musa takes the folder with trembling hands. Inside are the original deeds, letters, a confession written in a shaking hand. Adeyemi's confession, admitting he'd lied about the dispute, admitting he'd tried to claim land that was never his, admitting he'd poisoned his son with hatred to cover his own shame. He asked me to hurt you by hurting her, Bode says quietly, looking at Amina. Instead, she saved my life. I thought you should know who your daughter is. Who she's always been. Musa reads the document slowly. Then he sets them aside and looks at Bode, really looks at him, seeing not his father's son but just a young man trying to carry an impossible weight. My daughter told me what you did, Musa says. How you helped them. That took courage. Or it was just the least terrible thing I could do after being complicit for so long. Maybe both, Musa says. Come. Sit. You've traveled far. That night, 3 families that once stood together, then broke apart, then shattered further, begin the slow work of rebuilding. Not with money or zinc roofs or the promises that Lagos whispers to desperate people. But with truth, accountability, the decision to carry each other's burdens instead of weaponizing each other's pain. Amina sits outside under the stars with her mother's locket in her hand. She didn't bring home the life she promised. She brought home something more valuable, proof that you can survive being broken and still choose to heal. That cycles of harm end when someone finds the courage to step outside them. That sometimes the hardest journey isn't the one to the city, but the one back to yourself. The zinc roof will wait. The village well will be fixed eventually. But tonight, in the space between what was lost and what might still be built, Amina allows herself to simply breathe, to simply be home, to simply believe that surviving the darkness is its own kind of triumph. And in the morning, when she wakes to the sound of her mother singing in the kitchen, Amina joins her voice to the song, not because everything is fixed, but because some things, once taken, can still be reclaimed. Not freedom or innocence, perhaps. But voice. Dignity. The absolute refusal to let cruelty define the boundaries of your world. That, Lagos could never take from her. That, she carried home intact.